Both sides of the conversation family. We welcome you to this virtual space crafted especially for you. My name is Jada Curry and I'm Both Sides of the Conversation's marketing director and graphics design specialist. I want to take some time to ground us all as a community into this space we are about to open up in, so let's go through our community standards. Both Sides of the Conversation is providing a safe and honest space for open conversation, so we ask that you all be respectful of that. We also ask that you be respectful of each panelist, host, and participant. We do encourage healthy debates and conversations. Don't personalize anything with anyone. This includes name-calling, bullying, trolling, or shaming. This will not be allowed or tolerated. Your perspective is yours. It is not a prescription. You do not have to agree, but show respect. These community standards apply to all of our live shows and any virtual spaces that we hold on social media, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We want to make sure that we are caring for each other as a community. This is our priority in all of our endeavors as both sides of the conversation. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show and continue to stay in touch with us via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them. All right, thank you for listening and see you soon.
Welcome, community, to Both Sides of the Conversation. Today is our Sunday conversation. We are here every Sunday at 4 p.m. I'm John Henry, Executive Director. Today is our youth conversation. So we are excited to have our youth back in space with us. Today's conversation, we're going to be talking about domestic violence awareness. So you're going to hear from the youth, some amazing folks, and we have some amazing guests that's going to be here with the youth today to talk about domestic violence, some great information and resources. But with that being said, my co-host is here, Tony Rochelle. Tony, say what's up to the people.
Happy Sunday. What's up, community? Happy to be in space. It's going to be a heavy conversation today, but a conversation that's very much needed, as it is
domestic
it
violence.
is domestic violence. Sorry, community. I already know this is going to be a deep conversation, so I'm already going blank, but I'm looking forward to this conversation with being with the youth. So let's get it.
See, Tony, you got to keep it real. See, you've been at Mary J. Blige concert. You've been enjoying the Blue Angels. You can't even get it together there. That's what happens when you have too much fun.
No, my daughter turned 10 and I'm worn out from all that sugar from this weekend. So y'all got to forgive me, community, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
No, definitely. Tell the baby girl happy birthday. Well, with that being said, before we get started, community, one, I just want to say a couple of things because community, My community, our people is something else, okay? They just be coming on me. Y'all see the wrinkles in my eye. 18 hours I've been grinding, okay? The last few days, it's been a grind. 2 hours of sleep, okay? I got people calling me, fussing at me. John Henry, I want you at this event this morning. You're not showing up. Where your team at? You're doing all this stuff, but you don't show. Community, understand. I'm only one person, okay? My team, we busy. We all over the place. People been yelling and screaming all day long. Why am I not at these events? I apologize, community. I can't be there everywhere. I hear y'all. I know y'all want us in space with y'all, but I can't be everywhere. And again, I apologize. I received a number of phone calls from events that was taking place this morning. I almost overslept and forgot my show today, okay? I am running and grinding, but I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I know y'all won't be in the community. We'll be there. Again, there's a lot going on, and we're trying to do our best. Also, before we get started, just want to say, first, we want to give a huge shout out to the Human Rights Commission. The past 2 days on Thursday and Friday last week was very important, as together, our mayor of San Francisco, our board president, Shaman Walton, and Dr. Director Davis of the Human Rights Commission put together a phenomenal economic parity event. This conference went on for 2 days last night. It was so beautiful. I'm still emotional just how everything played out. Shout out to all of the Harvard law students who came in, all of the Northwestern students who came in, and professors, the councilmen from Illinois who came in to talk about reparations and some of the economic prosperity that is needed in our community. There's a fight going on in this country all across the United States as more and more cities, states, counties, and towns are fighting for reparations and fighting to bring economic power back to our Black community. So it was just an amazing event to hear from all these powerful folks. Shout out to Pinky from Slutty Vegan Mob. She was there. Shout out to Sean Richards from Cookies, and we had SF Black Wall Street, 100% College Prep, a number of powerful folks who came in and talk about how do we bring economics to our community. I was just excited to hear all of the amazing Black folks. When I heard Pinky's story, raising $5 million, it just brought encouragement to me, because sometimes we get discouraged and think that these opportunities are not in our community. And again, it was some amazing, powerful Black entrepreneurs, business folks who came in and told their story about how they built up economic wealth, not only in their home, but in the community, and brought services and jobs to our community. So it's some amazing stuff going on. It was an amazing 2-day event, and it ended up with a lot of fun at the end at International Smokehouse. And we celebrated, had a good time. And just to see the Black folks from San Francisco being able to come together and just dance and celebrate and just really enjoy some of the liberation that is going on with the Dreamkeeper Initiative. So again, shout out to our mayor, Shaman, and all of the folks behind the scene, Dr. Sai, to all of the Human Rights Commission staff. I mean, they put on an amazing event for our community. I know there was amazing events happen all this weekend. I can't announce them all. We'll let the youth announce them all. But shout out to my guy, Nate Ford, for SF Rebels, for the amazing work that they continue to do to impact our youth and families. My guy, Nate, is grinding. Shout out to my Latin community, okay? My brothers, Charlie and Oscar, came up to support our youth basketball program for our young folks that's locked up. Y'all know we trying to keep them young brothers going, and they showed up to support. So shout out to them as well. And shout out to all the community organizations that just continue to do their thing to impact community and always showing up to make sure that we are represented. Shout out to the OMI. Shout out to my guy, Maurice Rivers, and the rest of the folks from the OMI that just continue to show up for San Francisco. All the community street cleaning that went on this weekend. Very powerful stuff. Again, we are making headway. We are making change in this city. Other cities are following our model. Okay, the communities are getting involved, taking our communities back, beautifying them and making them beautiful again. A lot of work still to come. We're not there yet. But again, we're starting to take those steps, and it starts with conversations like this today. As you all know, this is a triggering conversation when we talk about domestic violence. We understand the impact, okay? When you talk about the stains and the marks and the scars of this has impacted the Black and brown community tremendous. So I hope you all enjoyed today's show. With that being said, we're going to turn it over to the youth as they're going to go through the road announcements and some of the things that are taking place for community. So I'm going to bring up Brother Devin and Lynette.
What's going on, community? Devin Ward. I'm always here. I'm back.
Hey everybody, Lynette, Mackie. I've been missing for a minute, but I'm back now.
All right. Well, y'all go ahead and take over the community announcements and all of the events, and we'll get started.
Okay, everybody. So with this being our domestic violence show, I would like to first start off by giving the direct number to the domestic violence hotline. That number is 800-800-799-7233. And I'm going to say it one more time, 800-799-7233. Another domestic violence resource that we will discuss during the show is www.thewifeofcreation.com. Let's talk about a few things going on in the world today. The University of California, Berkeley will offer a Nicki Minaj course for the upcoming spring semester. This course, called Nicki Minaj, the Black Barbie Feminist of Hip-Hop Feminism, will encourage students to think about how Minaj's impact on the hip-hop music industry connects to the broader historical social structures in hip-hop feminism. Saweetie and Quavo are back as the topic of the week. Rumor has it they called it quits, and Saweetie turned to the family. Accusations have been made that Offset may have fumbled around and made his way to Saweetie. More updates are expected on if these rumors are true or false and what Cardi B has to say about it. But Quavo isn't the only one that's out here getting their feelings hurt. There's another heartbreaking story out that Russell Wilson may be welcoming a baby into this world that Sierra is not carrying. Multiple sources have posted video footage of Russell Wilson outside with a younger woman. However, we don't only have the gossip stories to tell. Our very own Bay Area Najee Harris, with Pittsburgh Steelers, has been ranked as one of the fastest running backs of 2022. So big ups to him for putting on for the Bay Area. Since we're talking about topics closer to home, I know we all watched the NBA parade or was at the NBA Warriors parade this recently passed. But trouble has it in the gym. Thursday night, Draymond Green took a swing at Jordan Poole, nearly almost knocking him to the ground. Hopefully that isn't the end with Draymond and the Warriors, but come on now, Dre. We got to make better decisions than this.
Yeah, we got to tighten up.
Right. We need you out there, so you got to get it together. But now that we're talking about basketball, Bsotc is looking for volunteers that's willing to donate some time to help to the mentoring with the young men in the recreation basketball at Youth Juvenile Center 2 Saturdays per month. So please reach out in the chat or by email at info@bsotcd. My bad, y'all. I'm talking too fast. bsotc.org, or direct message one of the social media sites if you are interested. This week was the start of the 33rd annual Pee Wee Basketball League. Registration is still open, and we are looking for volunteer coaches as well as players. For more information, go to sfrebels.org/JRNBA. Some of the events we have coming up is San Francisco High Middle School Night Fair. Learn about the application process and the financial aid from SF area top schools. Open to all 5th and 8th grade. Friday, October 14th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Boys and Girls Club of San Francisco, Dawn Fisher Clubhouse. That address is 380 Fulton Street, San Francisco, California. Any questions, email sfrebels1990@gmail.com. Step to Health, Saturday, October 15th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., Booker T. Washington Community Service Center. The address to that is 800 Presidio Ave, San Francisco, California. For more information, email Ryan Babbitt at RBABBITT@btwcsc.org. 100% College Prep 2023 HBCU College Tour. Informational meeting Monday, October 17th and Thursday, November 17th at 6 p.m. at 120 Mendel Street, San Francisco, California. Another event is All Good in the Hope Pumpkin Patch, Friday, October 21st at 5 p.m. through 8 p.m. at 1605 Gerald Ave, San Francisco, California. Our last event is the Wizardly Nights, Friday, October 28th at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., 762 Fulton Street, San Francisco, California. Some BSOTC announcements we have are BSOTC is in search for volunteers. Our work is inspiring and feels good. We make a difference in the community with tangible results to show it. We are a highly driven group with positive impact. We do our part in changing the narrative, not only with you contributing to the community, but you'll also learn a lot and gain knowledge in your field of interest within the organization. We value your ideas and inputs. Sign up to be a volunteer today and you can make a difference. BSOTC Capacity Building Fundraiser is currently live. Please visit our GoFundMe page and make a donation today at gofundme.com/0058C65A. Support BSOTC when you shop online on Amazon Smile. Donate 5% of your eligible purchases on Amazon to BSOTC. All you need to do is start your shopping at smile.amazon.com and choose BSOTC as your charitable organization. And that donation will be made and no extra cost to you. Go to all our social media sites for more news and how to give back to the community and come support us at BSOTC. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette, for them updates. We do have a lot of events coming up. Like John said, we stay busy, but we're gonna get into the topic today, which is domestic violence. We chose domestic violence because it is prevalent in our community, and especially within youth relationships. So we think it's a good, impactful topic to be brought up. Domestic violence is usually hidden due to lack of resources and embarrassment. So we want to bring awareness to that conversation during the Awareness Month. So I'm gonna go ahead and read some of the stats that we have for domestic violence. About 1 in 12 youth experience a physical dating violence. About 1 in 12 youth experience a sexual dating violence, domestic violence. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe violence, i.e., beating, burning, or strangling by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 18 men have been stalked by an intimate partner during their lifetime to the point in which they felt very fearful or believed that they or someone close to them would be harmed or killed. It's crazy. On a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to the domestic violence hotlines nationwide. The presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of a homicide by 500%. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crimes. Domestic violence is correlated with a higher rate of depression and suicidal behavior. Women between the ages of 18 and 24 are most commonly abused by an intimate partner. 19% of domestic violence involves a weapon. So with those statistics, let's get into it. I think we got to bring up our guests.
You got to introduce your guests.
We got to introduce the guests. So first, let's bring up Savion, my boy Savion. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Savion must have stepped away from the computer. Go ahead and bring up the next person.
All right, we're going to bring up Deja Ward.
Hey y'all, I'm Deja Ward. As y'all know, Big CAU is actually, the first day of our homecoming week. Thank you for having me again.
All right, and next we're gonna bring up Sophia Marshall.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia. Nice to meet everyone.
And we got Raven on the screen.
Hey y'all, I'm Raven Every.
And last but not least, Miss Jamie Wright.
Hey y'all, Jamie Wright here. Wow, this is beautiful. I'm honored to be in this space with each and every one of y'all. John, Tony, thank you for having me. I'm honored. Tevin, Miss Janae, is it Xavion? Miss Xavion?
Savion.
Savion. Okay. Y'all, I'm from Oklahoma. I live in Texas. I'm in the deep south, so I apologize for the mispronunciation of the names in advance. Miss Raven and Fee, Deja. Gosh, I'm so inspired, John. I'm so incredibly inspired already, brother. So thank you for having me on.
See, Jamie, this is what it's all about, the youth. Everybody in the community want to hear from the youth. They want to hear what they have to say. This is their time. This is their show. Community, support the youth. Listen to the youth. Hear some of the things that they're going with. Y'all go hear less of me because they've been telling me, Jamie, my community say, John, we want to hear from Tony. We want Ayana to help. We don't want to see you. So I'm stepping back. I'm letting the youth take over. You take over. It's y'all show. Do what y'all do.
Do what y'all do. You all can ask me anything. Anything, okay?
Okay, I actually want to start. What made you go into coaching domestic violence?
Beautiful question, Deja. So when I became homeless in the midst of the pandemic as a result of domestic violence and went into therapy and really started leaning into introspecting and understanding why I was accepting of it, what I realized is that I was conditioned to accepting domestic violence. It started as I was a little girl, so there was very much parts of me that thought that that's what love looked like. And so as I begin to do the work and as I just continuing to do the work, I feel like it's my fundamental responsibility to reach back in my community, in Black and brown communities, and not necessarily coach, but just, and if it manifests in coaching, but just sharing my story and sharing as much as I can everywhere I can to say, hey, hitting is not love. Getting hit is not love, and hitting people is not love. And what we know is that hitting is a learned behavior. So guess what? If we learn how to hit, we can learn how to unhit. So now that I've gone through it as a little girl and as a 40-something-year-old adult, I have committed my life to just spreading the awareness so that we can understand that we can use our our mouths and our words in a nice way when we're not feeling happy or we're feeling sad or whatever. We don't have to beat up on each other.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you're saying that it actually, I was going to bring up the question, what is domestic violence to everyone? Like, what does that mean to you? Because to me, it doesn't have to be just hitting too. Hitting is definitely a major factor, but it can be emotional, physical, verbally, or even mentally. So I think we start with the basics and get everybody on the same page as to what it means for domestic violence to you personally.
Are you asking me that, sweetie?
I'm asking everyone. You included.
I'll let someone else talk. Thank you, Devin. Yes.
Okay, I'll go. Domestic violence. You're asking what the definition is to us? Okay. So domestic violence is not only physical but mental abuse, which is like you can be belittling or just talk to somebody a certain way, like somebody you're supposed to love and treat with respect, and you could just treat them in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable or less than.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel like, same thing, pretty much same thing as you said. It starts off with words, and then it just progresses into, what's worse, which is hidden and stuff like that.
I want to also touch on what Jamie said originally. It's what we learn too, because at a young age, we don't think about it, that our youth that are being spanked or, disciplined early, that's a form of domestic violence, even though it's not towards relationship, but that teaches them to grow up like, oh, you know what? My mom says she loves me, or my dad says he loves me, or he loves me, but I get spankings. And then I see them fighting and they love each other. So it goes as deep as to that too.
I definitely agree. That's the first thing they do. They want to whoop you with a belt, and then they want to come back and be like, or before they do it, I love you and I don't want to do this. Like, as a parent, whatever, I know. But yeah, that is the first step for sure.
I would have to agree with Deja too, that there's many different forms. So there's mental abuse and verbal abuse, not only just physical abuse. So I want to point that out.
I agree that it also includes verbally. I think a lot of times it starts off verbal and then it often leads into physical. So
I agree. I was just talking to someone yesterday that and they said if someone tells you what they're gonna do, they're most likely gonna do it. So if they said they're gonna hit you, they're most likely gonna hit you. So I agree. It just got to
Facts.
take that into
Or to
account.
have, oh my bad,
Now go ahead.
or like they even have thoughts of like, if they even have a thought of doing it, they will actually do it. Like, definitely.
And there's also financial abuse, y'all. Like, not based on my opinion, not so much for females as it used to be, because we have, as women, way more opportunities than the beautiful, strong women that came before us. But there's also financial medical abuse. I have the honor of holding space and coaching a man in New York. And he was the person getting abused, and he has heart failure. So his wife knew that he needed her medical insurance. So every time she would beat up on him and treat him bad, she would remind him, well, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? You need my insurance. So just FYI, that's an additional form of domestic violence that a collective community may not recognize.
Okay.
I also want to
go ahead, Tony.
I also want to touch on I think Lynette said it, like when you're getting whoopings and stuff from your parents and things like you look just like your daddy, or you gonna be like your daddy or your mama when you grow up. Like, I think that's a form of abuse too. And then keeping that mental in your state of mind as an adult, you're like, what does that mean? Am I gonna be like my mom or my dad? Like, that's an abuse as well, on top of what everybody else said.
Okay, Miss Wright, I have another question. Okay, so I know that majority of people think that domestic abuse falls on women for the most part, but you just said you have a man that you counsel as well. Is there a lot of men that feel comfortable opening up to you, or like what's that percentage like?
Yeah, Miss Deja. So I wouldn't say there is one man I have coached. What I recognize, and especially from this courageous brother, as he has gained confidence to share his story as being a man, especially a big Black man, that when he sought help, the first response was, "You gonna let that woman beat up on you as big as you are?" I feel like the more men like him gain the space and the courage to say, hey, I experienced domestic violence as a man, I think the more men are going to come, start to come out. And, that is a very unique question, because not a lot of Black men come to me about domestic violence. I've had the honor of holding space for a lot of men that have told me that they've been sexually abused as young men. Growing up, and even as teenage men. One of the things, and not to get too far off topic, but one of the things that I'm recognizing is that men, because I was 13 years old when I had when I became pregnant for the first time. But what I'm recognizing is that a lot of men that come to me and share those sacred, deep, dark secrets with me, is that they were sexually mishandled as children too, right? Like I was, but how it manifested with them was multiple children beating on women. It manifested in unhealthy ways. The only difference between them and me is that I was able to and still able to share my story of being sexually mishandled. And so I got a sense of empathy when I came home pregnant at 13 years old, whereas the men that I've had the honor of hearing their stories, they have not. A lot of times they get thrown in prison, or they start medicating themselves with drugs and alcohol. So not necessarily domestic violence, but definitely from the sexual mishandle point of view for men.
What made you feel comfortable to come out and speak or share your story?
When I was at the homeless shelter in 2020, I told my creator if he would give me the strength and he would get me out of the situation that I was in, i.e. homeless and full of shame, that I would live the rest of my life doing just this. And I do just this. So I made a commitment. My word is my bond. That's all I have. That's all I have. So, and just change. I have to be, Deja, what I needed as a little girl. And for you all to say Miss Jamie, it just fills my heart. and it lets me know that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I also want to say congratulations for, growing as a person and coming out of that strong.
Thank you. And I'm just a testament that we can go through it and we're going to fall. It might not be falling in domestic. We're going to fall at life, especially when we're trying to live it. But guess what? You pick yourself up, you dust yourself off. You don't consider it a loss. You consider it a learning lesson. You push. Our ancestors pushed for us and we have to push for them.
I agree. Okay. Now, let's get a little deeper. What does anybody, or Miss Wright, or Sophia, any of our guests or our panelists, do you guys have anything you want to share? Any personal experiences or experiences you heard?
I want to talk about something that's never talked about. I don't know if it really ties into domestic violence, but it is a violence. I want to talk about the Black community, like uncles touching on nieces and nephews, and the family secret being kept a secret, and nobody in the family is talking about it because it's been a generational thing. And he may have touched your mom and my mom, and the cycle just kept going. And then nobody just want to talk about it. Like, what is that about?
So from my lived experience, I feel like oftentimes we didn't know, and I say we, like our grandparents and great grandparents, like my mom, I don't think that they really, first of all, knew that wasn't, I think we knew, but they didn't know. Second of all, I don't think that some of the people that was being touched and needed somebody to stand in, and help them out, like the mother, if she found out, where was she going to go with the children? Right. So, I mean, I don't know how to dissect it, but I will say this. This is why John can call me at 2:00 in the morning and be like, "Hey sis, I need your voice. I'll be there." Because it's not until we have these hard conversations, and it's not until we have them in our community, and not from a condemning standpoint, but from an educational awareness standpoint, it's going to keep happening, right? But when we have platforms like this one and other platforms say, "Hey, I was sexually mishandled. I needed somebody to be there," right? And we as a collective Black and brown community be there, then we can start having the hard conversations starting to heal. But if we, like you said, Tony, continue to act like it doesn't happen or it hasn't happened, we're going to continue to have it. So like, for example, I was, sharing this with this beautiful, amazing person in my life. Like historically, our parents can say, well, parenting didn't come in the book. Well, now it does, really. The art of war, I mean, all these educational things are out here in these platforms that we can lean into to choose to do it a different way, to have the conversation with a young child that says, "Hey, mommy, daddy, I've been touched by my uncle," and now we have the educational pieces to step us through that and not sweep it under the rug. That's just my opinion. I'll let somebody
And I hate that term. Somebody put it in the comment already, sweeping it under the rug. I've heard that my entire life. And a lot of people, a lot of guys that are being the ones that's demonstrating domestic violence is because they might have been the ones that was touched as well, and it's like, well, how does that cycle change, and we can get off that subject, but thank you for sharing that. Somebody else can say.
I want to add to that real quick, because I don't think, let's say it's not sweeping it under the rug, more so as in if you have a brother or uncle that's not touching that youth in your family, and now they want to beat the shit out of somebody. Excuse my language, but let's be honest. If I was to tell my mom or my brother that one of my uncles or my cousins was touching me, then that becomes a hectic problem in the family. Somebody's going to want to beat him. Somebody's going to want to put him in jail. Now it becomes a whole family situation. Now you're making the person that was touched embarrassed. So I don't know about so much of sweeping it under the rug, or more so about safety, or like just keeping them from behind the system, or even the person that's going to beat your cousin or your uncle who did touch you, beat them. Now they're in the system. So it's more so just protecting your whole family and not really sweeping that under the rug. I don't know if I said that right, but that's just how I feel. Another way to see that.
You make a good point with that too, because like growing up, it was always like, the ladies are not sitting on, they're not sitting on my uncle's lap, and it's like just like little things, like you're not kissing your uncle on the cheek. I'm not, and and to touch on Jamie's point, like sometimes you just don't know. So I feel like the younger I was, not to say that something has happened, but if something would have happened, I wouldn't have known. But those are the things that kind of like my family had already practiced to prevent like those situations happening. So I think that that's an important perspective too.
I was actually gonna bring that up too. Like, no offense if y'all do it, but like kissing your family on the lips and stuff, like that's just weird to me because, you know, I didn't do that. And especially like I probably, okay, we didn't sit on our uncle's laps and like older cousins and stuff, just the men in the family. I probably sat on like my grandparents' laps. But once you reach like a certain age, like 10, that was dead. Like you couldn't do that anymore neither. It was just, I don't know. And then I was never really put in the predicament for that to happen. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely agree with that, because even now to this day, like with me, like you guys know, I got a lot of kids in my family. Once you hit 5, ain't no more kissing me on the lips. Like even like that's just the feeling I get, you know what I mean? And like 10 is still good, but like I don't know, because I went to school with somebody 18, we're seniors in high school. And after the game, he kissed his mama on his lips, and I just knew that was weird, and everybody else was like, no, that's not weird. Like that was weird. And this is a Black family. Kiss his mom on the lips after a basketball game. And I'm just like, oh, we do that?
oh, see, 10 is still a stretch because I'm talking about like sitting on the laps. You can kiss your child on your lips, toddler, but after like, maybe 4 or 5, yeah, that's dead. But like other people in the family kissing your child on the lips,
Also, I wanted to say how someone brought it up, how you don't find out, or family members don't speak on stuff until they get older. And I will say, like once I got older, I learned like things that have happened in the past to older men and women. So just to be able to share that story, sometimes it doesn't happen until they're old enough to want to share it or feel comfortable sharing that. So yeah, that's true.
Did Sophia, do you have any experiences or knowledge of anybody you know?
With like sexual abuse or domestic violence?
Any type of domestic.
Oh, domestic
Or
violence.
sexual.
I was a victim of domestic violence at one point. My last relationship that I was in some years ago, I was verbally and mentally and emotionally abused a lot. And I had to break away from that situation, which is kind of not difficult now, but it's my youngest son's father. So we still got to co-parent and things like that. So yes, I do have some experience with that. Did you have any questions?
How old is your son?
My youngest son is 4 years old.
So how does that affect like your relationship? I know you guys still have to communicate because he's still young and not old enough to verbally say what he wants to do or if he wants to go or what's going on. So how does that make you feel leaving your son or leaving your son with him? Mm-hmm.
So I'm my child's full custody, parent, guardian, all of that. So if I'm not being respected or I feel like, the situation will escalate to a point that, will trickle down and my son can potentially see it or, I will block that. So right now there hasn't been any communication because if you can't respect me or, keep your hands off me or, verbally speak to me like I'm an adult, then we're not going to, play those games and then have that exposure to my child. So
I have a question. Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
I want to know, as with you having a son, and I don't know if there's another man in your life now, but with you taking that gap with your son and his father, do you feel any type of way of not having like them to be able to build a relationship?
No, I've always left the door open for him to have a relationship with his child, be it supervised visits, be it visitation on his own. So that's just another story. He just decided to opt out of that because, you know, he's against the court system or against like established stipulations. But, you know, honestly speaking, I feel like maybe one day my children will know my intent was to more so protect them and show them that, you know, this is not how you treat someone you love. So.
Thank you.
Are there any men in your family or any men that you know that you give access to your son to be able to teach him how to be a man?
Yes. I have tons of uncles. My dad does a great job, even though he's a lot older now and he can, you know, it's limited, but Devin is my younger cousin, so he plays a big role in my children as well. And just uncles and activities, you know, the coaches and stuff, they kind of step in. There's like positive male role models still in their life.
All right, thank you. Okay, another question for everybody. What signs are there to look out for or to warn you? What warning signs do you look for?
I feel like, oh, go ahead. You want to go?
No, go ahead, Tony.
Okay. Just my experience. I remember when I was dating a guy and he wanted me to like wear my hair a certain way, you know, or like wear certain colors or always asking me where I was at all the time, you know. I just felt like that was like a lot of signs and it ended up being, you know, that way. So those are signs that I have experienced.
Or just anger management, like altogether, who can't conversate or who get angry off of little things. I feel like that's a big sign. Just like a short-tempered person.
I would have to say gaslighting. Like, you know, you tell them how you feel and then they turn around and make it seem like you're crazy as if your feelings aren't valid. That happens a lot too. Or like, you're overreacting. No, I'm not. This is how I feel. But some way, somehow they convince you like, oh, maybe I am tripping. So that's a big one too.
One that I have is well, I used to talk to this girl and she used to always want to play fight in a way, which is cool. You know, I'm not against play fighting or whatever, but to a point where it becomes like you keep hitting me, you keep pulling my hair, you keep doing stuff, and I don't want to get mad to where it could lead to another situation. You know what I mean? So I just think noticing like people don't know, I guess, to what extent to take things is a red flag or a pattern that can be potentially bad.
Yeah. Also, another thing is just how the person talk to you. Like, it could be when you first meet somebody within the first few weeks. I know there's like females out there who like calling, you know, men the B word and stuff. So like, if I hear that in the beginning of talking stage and stuff, it's just giving me vibes like, okay, you seem like you like try to speak down or belittle me or belittle somebody.
I think what Sunshine said in the chat is a key too, because when they keep you away from your family or your support system altogether, oh, that's like a major sign. Like you might as well just run.
The isolation, keeping you away from your family and friends, and it's definitely and love bombing y'all, meaning that and you just have to like just have discernment because some people might mean well, right? They're the love bomb. Oh, you're the love of my life, and real quick. That was my personal opinion. Like he was gonna sell me the moon and the stars. Y'all couldn't even reach. Joker couldn't even reach him, but was gonna give them to me within 2 weeks.
You don't even know my last name.
I was gonna say, what about the quick slogans too? You got to pick up on that. You in the kitchen, they talk about the laughing jokes, right? Like, oh, I cut you, I cut you, I cut you. You got to watch out for that one, right? Are you mess with me? You stuck with me. That's another one, right? These little ones that we joke around with. I think too, we miss the red flag because people laugh. Oh, if you leave me, I'm gonna kill you, right? And stuff like that. Or if you leave me, I'm gonna kill myself. Things of those nature. And then they said jokingly. So sometimes you have to watch out for the joking red flags as well.
I agree, and that's why that brings back to the point earlier when I said when someone says something they're gonna do, they're probably gonna do it. So I should take the little stuff serious too. Cause that's
I
true.
feel like one thing that I overlooked too was how the person I chose treated their mom and how they talked to their mom. Just from my personal experience, the person I was dealing with, my ex, he was just really disrespectful, and he would blame it on like her past and things like that. But you still don't treat your parents that way, like regardless of the fact. And that was a red flag that I didn't notice back then, and I should have been more like aware of it. Like that's not okay.
I think that people think crazy is in, but I definitely agree with y'all when y'all saying like you gonna kill yourself if I leave you. Don't try to make me feel bad for choosing me. And I feel like that's a huge red flag. Like crazy is okay to a certain extent, but not all crazy is good crazy. It's toxic.
But how do y'all feel about the music industry and movies influence violence in our community? Because I just remember those songs that used to come out used to increase the violence in our community. Like we used to hear "Bust the windows out your car." That used to be one of them. What about the music, y'all?
That's definitely like a big red flag at a time. I mean, at times, because you hear some music from like men saying, "I slapped the dog out of a bee," like little stuff like that, and I just wonder how they really female for real.
I think we don't talk about that type of domestic violence a lot. What John was just saying with that song, because females really slicing tires and busting out windows and following baby mamas. It's some real stuff going on that we don't even talk about on the girl side of domestic violence, because that's domestic violence too. Like especially when the girlfriends become psychos and worried about the past people. Them red flags, big red flags.
That's a good point. Like, what is that? Does that count as domestic violence, or does domestic abuse if you mess with somebody and they baby mama or they ex girlfriend is following you, busting your windows? I actually have a friend who's messing with this boy in Oakland, and his ex girlfriend busted her windows on her car.
That be happening a lot, like a lot. People getting it, like I said, we don't talk about it much because it don't really hit like, oh, the doctor's report or the divorce papers, like stuff like that don't hit those things. But as many times as my sister got her windows busted out, it's like, ooh, dang, crazy.
Right. Oh, you just brought up your sister, so I'm gonna speak on.
No, not that sister though.
Oh, okay. Somebody's sister, okay. But Ashanti's sister, Kenisha Douglas, on her 31st birthday, she had dropped a video on Instagram. Basically, it was like a collage, not really a collage, but it was just like a video of her life story. It was a bunch of pictures of her like growing up, her high school graduation, her getting pregnant, her having a miscarriage, and then she also included some pictures of her with like a black eye and her teeth were messed up, and then she also included some pictures of her getting dental work and just speaking about her growth as a person and like domestic abuse that she endured with her long-term boyfriend or long-term fiance who was a rapper. But she now has a website. Lynette, you mentioned it earlier in the announcements. It's the Wife of Creations. She helps people with domestic violence too, or who are victims of it.
I do have a question for anyone. One, how long did it take you to actually step away and say, I don't want to deal with this anymore? And what were the outcome of you actually walking away? Like, between you and your partner, was it more violence? Did you have to sneak, like something around those type of lines?
Miss Ryan? Yeah, I think that's you.
Yeah, so it took me getting to the point where I thought he was going to kill me. He hit me in the face with a laptop, and at the time I had braces on, and he knocked my teeth loose in my braces. So, and even really, like, even at that point, and that was the day that was the day that I went into the homeless shelter. I only packed a one bag of clothes, like just one day of clothes in a bag in my work computer, because I was going back home, and that's my truth. It wasn't until I went into the homeless shelter and started doing therapy, trauma informed therapy from a domestic, like a psychotherapist that has like years and years and years of domestic violence experience, that I recognized, like, oh, I'm in a domestic violence situation, and oh, if I go back home, it's possible that my two daughters will be burying me as a result of domestic violence. So in my situation, and my truth again, I thought it was love. The physical, it started with the mental, emotional, like we were talking about on the panel, but 3 months in it started becoming physical. So I literally made the decision to pray the physical abuse away for almost 3 years. And he after 3 months, he took me by the neck and shook me by my neck, and I still chose to marry him almost 2 years later after that. So it wasn't until he almost took my life and I recognized what domestic violence was, and I started doing therapy to realign my thought process back with the essence of who I am now. And the outcome has been beautiful. I've had the honor of sharing my story alongside beautiful, amazing people like yourself. I've been on 60 Minutes and BBC News, and just sharing my story from my heart space. And literally now I live a life that I absolutely love. Y'all, do I have not so good days? Absolutely. But through my therapist and through prayer, I'm recognizing that if I'm not having a good day, it's okay to not be okay. I'll climb up in that bed, y'all, pull that cover over my head, because I still very much, for a very long time, loved my husband, right? Just because he was abusive didn't mean that I didn't love him. But at the days that I felt bad, I just allowed myself to feel bad, but I didn't stay there. And y'all, I live a beautiful life. I'm leaning into a beautiful relationship. Literally just got off the road from New Orleans. This beautiful man, sped, John, was doing 85, 90 miles per hour this evening to make sure that I was on time to this panel conversation. So I love my life now.
Jamie, yeah. I got a question for you, and anybody else that has experienced this. Again, I just want to say I'm so happy that you got out of that relationship and that you're here on this panel sharing your story. First of all, just got to honor that. But one of the things about the domestic violence that I hear a lot of is that, like, women say, like, the verbal abuse is worse than the physical abuse. And as you were talking, I was like, dang, that happened to you. And then you still married him 2 years later. No judgment, but just asking, like, what is it about the verbal abuse and the physical abuse that, like, people can brush off with the physical abuse? I mean, you just said that this man hit you with a laptop. Like, I can't even imagine, somebody doing that, and then you still went back to him. And I can imagine that he was some kind of verbally abusing you. Like, what can you talk about that?
Absolutely.
Or anyone?
And it's not just women. Studies show, and one of the things that my therapist re-emphasizes, that physical abuse, it heals. The verbal abuse, she said, Jamie, think about every time he said something that made you feel bad, it's like stabbing yourself. She said, so if for every time he said something that made you feel bad, how many stabs would you have? Like, literally, y'all, I'd be bleeding out all over the place. So studies also show that, in my personal opinion, in the research I've done, the mental and emotional abuse, first of all, some of the times we don't even recognize it's there to start to heal it. And then when we recognize it's there, then we have to take the steps to get someone in our lives that's going to help us heal it. And in our community, we want to pray about it. We want to pray without execution of tangible things. And then we want to take things to our ministers. Well, some of the times our ministers don't have the tools to allow us to start to heal the way that we need to, right? So it's hard to recognize it. And like for me, I was thinking, well, I had the best man on the face of the earth. Retired Army, tall, dark, and handsome, bought us a beautiful house, bought me a Mercedes-Benz, all these things. And so I'm like, after being 13 years old and pregnant and 5, pregnancies by the time I was 19 and suicidal and all this, if I get a man that loved me like this, then I'm going to stick it out. So I didn't, at the point, Tony says, I didn't think I deserved better.
Was there anything that could have been said to you or anything else that could have occurred that could have made you leave earlier?
Ms. Dacia, at that point, I don't think so. Because I dealt with the abuse for a long time. It wasn't until the pattern was interrupted by a professional therapist that allowed me to start understanding the why of why I was accepting of it. Like, so the people in my support system around me, they didn't have the tools. There's no dig on them. It's just they didn't have the tools. I'd called off. We had gotten engaged and called it off because he had jumped on me really bad in Hawaii. Took me on a trip, y'all, and beat my butt when we got to Maui, right? So when we got back, I called the engagement off. But what I recognized is that it took someone that like my therapist, and it had nothing to do with him. My therapy and my healing journey, it had and still has everything to do with me. And as I started realigning myself with the essence of who I was and who my creator designed and told me I could be, like really mushing that together with the help of my therapist, then it was very much easy for me to start making, like you said, beautiful, don't make me feel bad for choosing me. And now I can say that and mean it with my whole heart and know what it looks like. I hope that answered your question.
I have a question, JB, because I think this is something that, when you talk about the transactional, like so many transactional relationships, and I think monetary keeps women involved in a lot of these relationships. With the younger generation, I'm seeing, men with money are alluding to them financially, keeps them in these situations. But I also just want to name and highlight too that, when we're talking about domestic violence, for folks that are watching too, previously it's been a thing that men perpetrate on women. When you look at the statistics, is men. But as we look at the different dynamics and relationships throughout all of our communities, we're finding a huge increase of domestic violence and LGBTQ community relationships. A lot of women on women abuse, a lot of men on man abuse. Those numbers are spiking as well, sometimes faster than men on women abuse. But in the Black community particularly, it's just definitely been a higher man on women abuse. But also I was reading something shortly before the show that also women aggressiveness and domestic behaviors in our community has increased as well. You see more women shooting and killing people and running over people and doing different things. So there has been a major increase of domestic violence from all parties. So I think when we look at this holistically, I don't think we could really point at one gender. I think there's a problem that we have as human beings engaging with each other in relationships, whether it's man on man, woman on woman, man and woman. We have a real problem that we have to address when it comes to this violence in our community.
Beautifully said. And don't get me started on the 400 years of trauma. And that's where it manifests in a human violence. I don't care if it's domestic violence, gun violence, man, woman. We as a collective Black, and I'll say Black community right now, we deserve therapy. I don't know if it was on your platform, John, but one of the things as a part of our reparations, if we ever receive them, is the opportunity to get free mental health help. We are all, and going back to the whoopings, how did our slave masters discipline us? They whooped us. And what do we do to our kids? We whoop them. And I'm not opining on it either way. I'm just stating the facts. So yeah, as a human race, we're hurting because we're hurting. But guess what? Until the day I die, I'm going to tell my story of healing so we can heal. I want my grandchildren to have whole, healthy, green light instead of red light relationships.
Man, that's very powerful. And I think you hit the nail right on the coffin. I mean, because in the Black community, there's a stigma with mental health. And I think this is why these conversations are so powerful. And it's great for our youth to hear this, because our youth is going to talk a little bit more about that as well, because young people are dealing with this in high school, domestic violence. These relationships are starting younger and younger. We see the young middle school kids. I got a couple young kids that's in our juvenile system for having these type of domestic disputes with young people. 6th, 7th graders are now in these relationships that become violent. But the thing with mental health is, there is a stigma. But how do we continue to push getting these seeing a therapist, seeing a psychotherapist, getting these relationship therapy? And I think this is why it's so important, Jamie. And I always highlight you, and I know I overpraise people, but you particularly, because you have such a powerful story, your book, the way you hold on to your vulnerability, but also release it to the community. I think that's what we need more of, right? Because I think when women and men hear your story and how you took and received that mental health, really transformed who you are, where you at. And I think if more people see and hear that, and it's okay to get that support, because again, you hit on it so many times, the things you didn't even acknowledge that you were able to get from therapy. Because in our community, we know we're heavily rich in the religious realm, and everybody's going to the pastor and to the deacons and trying to get help. And again, I think you said it so eloquently that some of those folks ain't always equipped to deal with those type of situations. We know when it comes to mental health, our churches for years talked about it being a devil and making it a stigma thing. So those very people are the ones who pushed our community from these type of supports. And now we have to make it okay. And it starts with folks like you and these phenomenal young folks that we have on today. But I just wanted to put that out there. Deja, go ahead. I know you have some more questions. Raven's been quiet up there. I'm waiting to hear Raven in the conversation, but I'll let her walk herself in when she's ready. But go ahead, Deja.
I can share. I personally haven't been a victim of domestic violence, but I have a family member. And in this particular case, I feel like a lot of it is a shame because she has a son for the man that she was with. And so I just feel like right now she feels like she should push it to the side because of her son. But at the same time, she's not realizing that your son picks up on this thing. Your son has seen these things. And it's actually her second domestic violence relationship. And so I would just figure that if you already been through this one time, you would know what to do. Like the first time, she was just so adamant about putting him in jail and all this and all that. But now that she has a son, I feel like she believes that he should stay there. But at the end of the day, wrong is wrong. And so in her standpoint, I feel like she's embarrassed. But it's like, what is there to be embarrassed about? Because later on in life, your son is then going to pick up what he saw at this young age. And then what are you going to say to him? So it's just like, to me, it's just very important that you realize what is wrong and to walk away and then hoping that it will like grow healthy. Like she's just so naive to things. Like she just wants everything to be normal. And I'm like, it's not normal because actually like her daughter in the situation where it got real bad, the man kicked her daughter outside her house. That alone should have told you that this is not okay. Your whole daughter was outside in Atlanta. Like it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then she still allows this man to be in her house. She still allows this man to be around. So it's like, what are you portraying to your daughter? And then your daughter is aware that her dad abused her. So now it's just an ongoing cycle. And so what is your daughter going to then, when she starts a date, what is she going to tend to? It's what you have put forth. So I just feel like the problem is that it's that they're ashamed, but it's also you need to go seek help because you have kids to raise. Like it's not about you, it's about your kids. And so she gets mad at everybody else because like everyone's trying to help her, but to her it's like y'all don't understand because I have kids. But the bigger picture to me is do it for your children, because later on when children start to date and all this, they're going to pick off of what you put before them. And then I just feel that that's a real problem in the Black community. We're just so ashamed to seek the help. And I just really feel like, therapy is good. Therapy doesn't mean you're always crazy. It just gives you an open space to talk about your problems and to get help.
And that's why these conversations are so important, Raven. I'm glad you brought that up, and this is why when I say this digital media and social media, the way we use it can also impact people, because there's somebody that might watch this in the privacy of their home and get something out of this. And this is why it's great for all of you to speak up. And I agree 100% with you. We have to make it not a shame thing, but something that we there for support and help. Because again, we are raising young people. And you're right. When your kids see this, okay, young men will see their moms get beat and think, well, this happened to my mom, that means love, right? So we build these young people up now who get some relationships, and they feel like, oh, if I hit this girl, she's going to know that I love her, right? And we're sending this message to our community. And sometimes, you know, I've seen it on both sides, you know, women who are very toxic. I've heard women make comments and say, oh, if a man doesn't hit me, he doesn't love me. I've heard it from men. If she don't let me hit her, she don't love me. Like, these are some of the toxic things that we get pushed out in our community when we don't address and really understand what's going on. But I think that's very powerful, what you said. We have to address it. We have to name it. We have to make it something that is open to everybody to talk about. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do here. But go ahead, Dave, jump in there.
I actually have a question. For those who have experience, or those who know people who have experience, how do you feel like someone like Raven, who's a bystander, but also trying to, you know, aid and help her relative heal, how do you feel like a bystander plays a role in domestic violence relationships?
I met a friend in college. I literally walked in the bathroom and her face was bloody, dripping blood. It was horrible. And we became friends ever since that day, right? And through that process, I ended up having to serve that gentleman, like the VPO and all that, you know. And some years went by, and me and her we're still good friends to this day. And maybe about 6 years ago, I was staying at her house, and I woke up that morning. I came out the room. I still had on my nightgown and everything like that. And the gentleman was in the room. He was in the house. And so I guess he had stayed the night before or whatever, and they had rekindled and they were friends again. And I was in a state of shock, and I didn't understand what was going on, because he hadn't been around. She hadn't spoke about him or anything like that. But the moral of the story is that we went through all of that process, and then now she's still friends with him to this day. She's not with him or nothing, anything like that, but they're still friends. And she made a comment like, well, he doesn't put his hands on me anymore. But in my mind, I still remember when I seen him that day, I still remember seeing her for the first time, and she was, you know, in that state of emergency. And it kind of hindered our relationship, because I didn't really know how to deal with that situation. So it made me kind of think, like, do I get involved with someone else that goes through that situation? Because what is it that you thought that it was okay for you to be friends with him now, even though y'all are not together? So I don't know, Jamie, can you speak on that? Or
I absolutely can. So the first thing I would say is don't judge. And I speak from we, because first of all, I'll always consider myself a survivor, and it's a community thing, you all, especially in our community. It's not a family thing anymore. It's going to take us as a collective community wrapping our arms and our hearts around each other to heal. But the first thing I would say is don't judge. If someone feels comfortable enough to share like the shame of being in an abusive relationship, listen without responding unless and until they ask. And when they ask, or when you feel comfortable enough in recommending something, recommend them reach out for professional help. There are men and women, and to see y'all young Black men in this conversation, I honor y'all, because it's going to take men too, working alongside this gender-based violence, which it happens to men and women, but predominantly women. But it's going to take men, you know, taking a stance and being in the hard conversations too to actually heal. But we recommend the person to someone that's trained to help. Because at the end of the day, as a survivor, someone experiencing violence, domestic violence, we've already had our autonomy ripped from us, right? we're already struggling with the fact that, well, am I stupid or am I worth it? Am I these things that this person is telling me? And then our family and friends in a good space and good hearts, they come to us like, why don't you leave? And why don't you stay? And why did you go back? You know, and it's from a place of love. It's none of it's malice. But when we have the opportunity to hold space for someone, simply refer them to the people that are trained to help them navigate the best decision for them. That's the epitome of empowerment. And when we feel empowered as a human being, that's when we can step back into or stretch ourselves to rock in the power that allows us to do the hard things, to face the fear and do that thing anywhere way. So don't judge, recommend them to resources that are available for people to help them, and or ask them to create a safety plan. Hold that space. Say, hey, sis, hey, brother, when things get volatile, I want you to pack a bag and leave it at my house. And the person that's holding the bag and the ID or whatever, don't say anything to anybody. Only you and that survivor should know that those resources are there when he or she decides to leave. And at the end of the day, y'all, this is the hard reality. Only the person can choose to leave. And you might, when it's comfortable and appropriate, to say, hey, if you go back, I support you 110% because this is your life to live. All I ask is that you have a borough policy in place, or we're not frying chicken and passing hats if this man or woman decides to take your life. And say it from a place of love, right? Pray, ask the universe, whoever your higher being is, to give you the words to say to them, to tell them that hard truth. And then you just leave it alone. And the person that's causing the abuse, if there's ever an opportunity for you to tell the survivor or the person that's causing the abuse, hey, brother, hey, sister, like, have you ever considered you're only hitting because you don't know other way, or you're hitting because you're hurt? I know of this dynamite, phenomenal resource that's available that'll help people that cause abuse. Here it is. You might consider checking it out. Because men or the person that causes the abuse, y'all, they're human too. Right? And a lot of times they're hurting because they need hurt. So to just fix one end of the spectrum, we talked about this the last time, John, we're only addressing one half of our community. It's not going to work. We need our men, sisters, our Black men. I've never dated anything but Black men, but guess who I've been hurt the most by? Black men. We need them. So we got to hang in there with them. Black men, we might be crazy, brothers, but we gonna figure it out because y'all need us.
I think that's the most important thing that's need to be addressed when we talk about domestic violence. And I'm at a lot of these tables. I know a lot of the organizations that do the support. And I'm just going to be honest, Jamie, you're right. A lot of the support goes to women. You know, when we talk about the man, they work with the district attorney, we want to convict them, but we're not talking about how to heal the men in our community. I'm at a lot of these meetings, and again, there is not an investment when it comes to mental health and services for men to get their emotions out and do that. And I think that has to be a part of the equation. How do we support these people that are going through the domestic violence, but also their partners? How do we interject with them? Because locking them up is one thing that also enrages people, right? But how do we, in a way, collectively, before we get to the point where police is involved or things are escalated, that we also invest into the men in our community on just regular day-to-day mental health, some of the things that are going on. And I think that's a challenge that we're having, but it's something that we have to continue to have that conversation around. But I think one of the other things too, Jamie, if you could touch on, when we're talking about how do we get help, you know, I also want to ask the youth and you know, have this culture that we have in our community with no snitching and all of this. Have this impacted the way people help when it comes to intervening and trying to connect? Because, you know, we grew up in the communities like, hey, don't call the police. We don't call the police. Have this impacted the response and the help? And then, like you said, you know, how do we continue to keep people in the community involved? Because I hear sometimes, like, you know, people that have been through it, like, hey, man, I moved my sister. I got her out of the situation. She went back to him, right? And then the next time people are like, well, I don't want to do nothing. So how do we stay engaged? And then how do we find that support system? Because community, believe me, I've been a part of these projects. I've done this. It is hard. You have to go in there, get these women out, get these men out, or whatever the situation is, move them. And then sometimes, like Jamie said, you still in love because you feel like it was an accident, or he was upset and this is not how it is. And we become, lost into the intimacy or the emotions that we have connected to the people. So how do we, address that and keep people connected so that we don't have more lives lost to this violence?
Quick answer for me and homework for you all. Restorative and transformative justice. You all, like y'all young, beautiful people, homework, okay? This is a call to action. Research those two principles, dissect the heck out of them, and everything that you do to continue providing a positive impact in our community, especially in the violence arena, study it, research it, use it every step of the way, because those are the buzzwords today. And it goes back to what someone just commented in the virtual space, watching online. It's pulling back that counsel, like the counsel in the community, restorative and transformative justice.
Can I piggyback on that? I know right now, John, with our youth that we're working with right now, I think a big thing, whether or not they decide to come or show up for these meetings or not, is a big thing is tell them it's about something else. Tell them they'll have an incentive. Let them sit down. You got to stay here the whole time until the end of this hour, this 2 hours. We got something for you. And then we break it down to what we really need to talk about. Because we all know that, one, you could tell them it's about this and they won't show up regardless if the money's on the table or not. And two, we don't know what could happen if the notice goes to them like, hey, you need a domestic violence conversation. He go home and beat the heck out of his girlfriend, or she go home and beat the heck out of him, because now it's known that something is going on in that home. So I feel like with a lot of domestic violence, once you open up that this is going on in my house, then it becomes a problem even more bigger the picture than just you popping your lip or saying something that person didn't like. So our biggest thing is incentives. Like that's gonna be the start with it, not just the youth though. It could be one of our youth parents or anything like that. But just getting them to show up for a $25 gift card, some food, something. Tell them that it's something other than what it is, and that'll be the start.
I agree 100% with you, Lynette. And I've been fighting this, even with just mental health outside of domestic violence, right? If it's going to take us to pay people to come get the help, I'm willing to do it, right? When we talk about reparations, we talk about how do we restore the harm. That is like the biggest thing that is on my forefront when I'm in there advocating, right? You got to pay people. I don't care if it's $300, $500, $1,000, pay them to get to the service. I'm even taking it to another level. I'm working with some of the coalitions. I'm trying to talk to our legislators. How do we make mental health part of our workday, right? There's laws in California, there's laws across this country that says an employer has to make sure you get safety training, right? How do we make them say you have to give mental health? We know there's workplace violence. We know there's bullying in the workplace. We know it's microaggressions in the workplace. That also trigger people when they go home, right? So how do we make these policies, right? And how do we hold corporate America also accountable for the harm that they cause in our community, right? You go to work stressing, you come home and you go off on your family because you had a hard day at work, right? So not only is it just safety meetings for work safety, we should make it a part of the workday, right? Even with these nonprofits that we work with across the community, right? When we have youth jobs, why do we make youth work 8 hours a day, right? We should be developing them, right? This is one way you could bring mental health into our youth. Hey, you work for 6 hours. 2 hours part of your payday is to go to therapy. It's ways we could do it. There's a cost. Yes, we're going to lose the cost. But again, is the cost worth it? And again, I'm going to keep saying it. In America, if we don't invest as much money as we did for COVID into mental health, we're only going to see things go trembling down into this way that we're seeing. You all see not only domestic violence, the violence that are taking place across this country with gun violence. It's because we don't have the service and the providers that are doing the work for our communities. So how do we legislate? This is the conversation we need to have across this country. How do we make the employers? How do we make our organizations? This is part of their responsibility to provide mental health services. We can't just keep saying people need mental health, people need it. We hear it all the time, right? We know they need it. How do we now intentionally put it in there where you have to get it? You can't run from it. This is part of your job, right? When I go to work, there's a 10-hour, every 10 days, we have to have a safety training, right? So how do we make it where every 10 days or every 5 days, you have to go see a therapist? That is part of your job. You have to go talk, right? It's just smart things that we could do. Again, yes, there's a cost. But again, as much money we pay for other things in this country, why can't we do it? And I agree with you on the how do we disclose the domestic violence so it's not known in families. And this is why we having this conversation, right? So that we can put together strategies, right? So that we can. But the whole ideal of the community knowing is so that we can keep an eye on them too. Maybe I don't say nothing. Maybe somebody's on here going through domestic violence, but at least if I know that this is the guy that's doing it, I can be more mindful. I could be more attentive, right? I'm not just sleeping. If you my next door neighbor and I know you're going through this, maybe I didn't address it to cause more harm to you, but maybe now I'm more attentive that if I hear something going on, maybe I'm picking up the police, calling the police. Maybe I'm going over there knocking on the door to cause a distraction to get you to get to another room to lock yourself in. I don't know. I'm just saying it's things that we have to do. And that's why this conversation is about awareness. We're trying to bring people to understand this is going on. How can we do it collectively, together, and then strategize to be effective in our community? But I agree with you, Lynette. There is a funding component that has to go to it. And then when we get these people, how do we as community and community organizations work together strategically to make sure that these folks are safe? So that's a great comment there, Lynette.
Okay, one more comment. Sorry, guys. But I do want to kind of go back a little bit on when you said about snitching and being a friend and watching someone being abused, whether verbally or physically or emotionally, and not speaking up, because that actually happens quite often, that you will sit in the room, let's say it's in the back room or in the living room, while somebody's in the back room getting smacked up because they said the wrong thing in front of somebody, or you're in the car and somebody gets smacked because they looked at the wrong way or anything like that, and you're sitting there and you don't speak up, or your siblings are smacking their girlfriends or their boyfriends or whatever the case may be, and we don't speak up, because in reality we could talk about people actually committing the violence, but what about those watching and not talking? We need some type of conversation for that too, because that happens on a regular.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna ask that. So what do we do? What are we supposed to do in that situation if we're, witnessing it? Just like,
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, Theo, think your mic was making some noise.
Mine? Oh,
No, Jamie, I think it's Fee. I think Fee, when you came off mute, I think your mic is making some background static noise. Go ahead, Jamie. You could go. I think your mic is fine.
if you're witnessing it, and the only thing I would say is the call law enforcement. But my grandmother used to tell us all the time, somebody's fighting, don't get in the middle of it. So I'm coming from a little bit of an old school, which can be a little dangerous. So I'm looking forward to seeing what someone else would say. But if it was me, I would call 911 because I'm scary like that, y'all. I don't.
So Jamie, that's the right thing to do. But again, because what's going on in this country, right? We know that when the police, law enforcement are called to domestic violence situations, 9 times out of 10, somebody's getting killed. 9 times out of 10 is happening, right? That man that's in there being the abuser, he's upset. He don't want to go to jail. The police kill him. So we got people in the community now don't want to call the police for that, right? We got man in the community that's not stepping up in the man. Typically, that's what man in the community do. Hey, 6 or 7 brothers, we finna go down there and we finna go have a conversation with this brother. But we got man in the community that's not like that no more. I can't just be putting my life on the line, you know what I'm saying? So we got that issue. But that's one of the things that's a challenge. And I've been on some of these domestic violence conversations, and this has been a challenge for community. We call the police out, and then now they coming to get this dude, right? He's afraid. He don't want to go to jail. And now he like, y'all got to kill me. And then we lose another member of our community. So, it's a challenge. I don't have 100%. I know some of the things strategically that we've tried to do. But again, the way these laws are in place, you go in there when the guy is leaving, you move the family out, and then the school tell them where they at. Or, it's just our system is not structured in a way that I can say that's bulletproof. But again, like you said, Jamie, law enforcement is the first call that people are going to make. But we know sometimes in our community, especially when law enforcement is called to domestic violence conversations or calls, they turn up to be deadly, and it's just what it can be, you know. But anybody else can jump in. Tony, anybody?
I wanted to see if Jamie could address Princess Washington's comment she left in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely, Princess Sweetie. Therapy. It's gotta be someone, sweetheart, that's licensed, that's what they do in trauma informed. That question that you just answered, love, was me. And that's just my hard truth. In therapy, and learning what healthy love looks like, and learning where it came from. I have daddy issues. I still to this day, y'all, do not know who my dad is. And the man that was supposed to protect me as a little girl did not. He sexually mishandled and beat my mom, and sexually mishandled my sister and I. So the therapy, I mean, I'm still very much in therapy, but now I'm learning. And I have to be mindful of that as almost a 43-year-old woman, that I'm not seeking unhealthy love to feel the love of a man. And that's just my hard truth. And that's why I hold on to my vulnerability, John. Is if I can help one young lady, one young man to learn what it looks like to have a healthy love, and no matter what you've done, and no matter who you've done it with and who you've done it to, if you are willing to put in the work, meaning it might, therapy might look different for you, or the work might look different for you, but whatever you and your creator feel like the work looks like, if you're willing to put in the work, you can change your life. Y'all was smoking crack cocaine out of Coors cans back in the 90s. Smoking cigarettes and all of that. And oftentimes when I share that, they're like, who you? Yeah, me. So I believe anybody. I don't care who you are. If you're willing to put in the work, you can change. But sweetheart, therapy, because that is not healthy at all.
Wow, very powerful. And to the young people here, and for the young people that's watching, this is why Jamie is here. For y'all young folks that's in college, okay? These signs that you all are hearing, this story, this testimony, is for you all. This is your alarm being ringed to wake up and make sure you're paying attention when you're around your friends, when you out and you see behavior that is not appropriate. If you see your friend dating somebody while y'all in college, or y'all see this, start thinking about y'all plan, how y'all gonna help support them. Maybe you out on a date with somebody, right? And these red flags that we talk about, don't just brush them off. Because a lot of it starts off with jokes. It starts off with little comments. It starts off with control. Like you heard Tony talk about your hair and your dress and what you're doing. If you start finding those type of things, you have to remove yourself, right? And ask for help. Talk to some of the folks, man, and make sure. But
and John, can I piggyback off of that really, really quick, y'all? There's such thing as green flags, and I'm working through this right now because of the things that I have gone through in my life, and because it is a constant healing journey. Like this beautiful, amazing being that I'm dating right now, I have to be mindful that I'm not pushing them away, right? That I'm not projecting my trauma and my hurt onto them and pushing them away. So that's the flip side. Because Lord knows I'm like, I'm 2 decisions away from prison half the time. I'm just this imperfect being trying to be the best version of myself. And so with that, ladies, especially ladies, y'all, like we can't make these men pay, or a woman, if you're in a same-sex relationship, we cannot make our partners pay for the things that other people have done in our lives. And I'm saying that from a lived experience too. So we've gone to therapy together. He's gone to therapy with me. He's willing to go to therapy with me if I ask him to, because he recognizes that I have trauma, but I recognize it's not his fault. And I have to continue putting in the work to have the beautiful life that I'm designing on purpose for me to have.
I love that. I love that. That is so awesome.
I think some of these people need to hear that. Don't be bringing your hurt and your trauma into the new relationship.
But hold on. Wait, John, hold on. So Jamie, okay, first of all, I got a lot of questions about this. So you said he goes to counseling and everything with you. That is awesome. But how long was you guys dating when you introduced him to your trauma? Because you don't want to run him away either. So like, what did that look like when y'all started dating? Did you just go in and be like, look, da, 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 da? Like, how was he able to be submissive to that and go on this journey with you? Because we need to know how to address that and approach that when dating these men and things like that. Because we don't want to scare them away, and we do want them to know us, but come on, give it to me. Give it to
Like,
me.
and you're right, because everybody doesn't deserve our stories, right? And some people aren't mature enough to hold the spaces that we've been in. And so I would say in this particular situation, in this relationship that I'm in now, when I started to recognize that his words aligned with his actions and that he was consistent, I was able to, and I mean, it's not a secret in terms of, because my daughter's 28, y'all, I'm 42. So it's not a secret that, you know, I jumped off the porch. And so it's harder for me to hide that trauma part. But really, when I started leaning in with my vulnerability to him is when I recognized that he was consistent, and I recognized that his words aligned, right? And we had a incident happen that I flipped completely out. And he stayed right there. And that's where the therapy started to come in. And then we've just continued it. Like right now, he's reading a book on how to live with someone that has PTSD. Because I'm really jumpy and because we can't rip the trauma out of our lives, right? And so with me seeing him putting in the work, like understanding my trauma, because you know he didn't have the best childhood, but it definitely wasn't the worst. But I see that he's trying to understand where I'm coming from, and it just makes me lean in further. But consistency for sure, and his actions was aligning with his word. When he said he was going to do something, he did it. I don't touch a car door when he's around. I don't touch any door when he's around. He's a perfect gentleman. So Tony says, like, so when I start flipping out, it was obvious that it was me, because he wasn't even doing anything from, you know, I'm sitting up there shaking my neck, and he's like, and then I recognized it because of my therapy and learning the healthy signs of relationship. I can now recognize when I'm like, and he's all like, instead of just going all in mad, because that's what I was used to. Now I recognize, like, now, Jamie, you need to go have several seats, sweetheart, because you say you want this life, but your actions are in his. I hope that answers your question.
I just got triggered because every time I hear the door shut, I be jumping and stuff, because I got hit every time somebody cooking. I hear the pan hit the stove. I be like, it be bothering me. It be real.
It's real. It's a thing. It really is. And you'll know, like, and not to get all churchy, but I am a lover of Jesus Christ and God, y'all. And whatever you believe in, I just say that lean into that. I don't care what your higher being is, and ask them for discernment, right? And ask them, if you've gone through trauma, to help you see yourself through their eyes. And I try my very best to, like, all I want to do is hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. So when my trauma starts to run rapid, and I'm that 7-year-old traumatized little girl, I also lean into like, does this market Jesus well? Can I go around and be like, oh, I love God, and then I'm sitting up here acting a fool with God's child? And that's why I'm able to forgive my ex that abused me, and my stepfather, and the people in my past that has not been so nice to me, because I understand that they're human, and I understand that they're God's children.
Yeah, the PTSD is real, y'all. I deal with it every day, and that's why I got to continue to have mental health support, because PTSD is real. Okay, I don't even eat grits no more because the PTSD for them grits, not grits. All right, Deja and Fee, did you have something you wanted to say? Because I know you came off the mic, Fee, earlier. Did you want to say something?
I'm just trying to catch up and listen to what's going on from when I logged off. So,
Fee, I'm gonna repeat the question. It was, what do you think the witnesses of domestic abuse should do or react? Like, what should the bystanders do?
oh, okay. Like, as for friends, when they're like playing too much and stuff like that, I kind of heard that earlier.
Or anybody?
I feel like when you're in that situation, you can speak up, especially if you see your friend play fighting with her boyfriend, and you can tell he's like, it's getting serious, or even vice versa, you can speak up and say, like, you know, you're doing too much, or calm the situation down, kind of remind them that other people are present, and then maybe pull that person to the side later. But if it's like a situation where it may escalate, or you are fearing for yourself, call the police. I feel like.
I think
For
that
real.
I think that's real, and I think that's why what Devin said earlier about play fight, and I think Savion said it about the way people talk to each other and things of that nature. We gotta step in, you know, because those things escalate. So, but go ahead, Dave.
I was gonna say, well, Raven, did you have something to say? I know you were trying to talk earlier too about the bystander.
I was just saying in reference to calling the police, I feel like calling the police is important, but it's also important that the victim also has to tell the police what's going on. Because, for instance, in my sister's case, it escalated and my brother ended up coming on scene. And unfortunately, my brother shot the boyfriend. He didn't, like, he shot him in his leg. So when that got into the police hands, the police is only worrying about what my brother did. But at the same time, the police is not taking into account, well, why did my brother do this? You're focused on he's a convicted felon with a gun. But at the end of the day, he wouldn't have to do any of this if his sister wasn't being abused. So I believe calling the police is important, but they also have to tell the truth to the police so the police can help. And a lot of times I feel like they shy away from that because it's like, well, if we put the boyfriend in jail, then what's going to happen to my brother? So, but I do believe that calling the police is the right thing to do because the law can help you, but it's also that they have to tell the truth to the police.
I agree. That's a powerful thing to say because sometimes it could take it there, and the police are needed to come. I wanted to say also about Jamie, your partner who reads the book, to learn more about you. That's dope too, because you don't too often hear much about someone who is still a bystander even after you have survived that situation or event. So um, that was just cool to hear. But I
Thank you.
wanted to
I think
also
he's dope too, Devin, sweetie. Yeah, I think he's dope.
yeah, definitely. But I wanted to add too that it's important to think about, the when the police are called and that person is taken in jail, the effect that has on them and their kind of like their progress in domestic violence. Because I know that people who have been in prison for long times or whatever the case may be, like that institutionalized mindset and that being in prison and being such a pressure cooker, and that can kind of add and make their domestic violence tendencies worse. So I think that's also kind of just an important topic, and to show how, yes, calling the police does de-escalate the situation, but it's important to help that abuser or whatever the case may be after the fact that that the police has been called.
But can I ask a question, Jamie? What about when you call the police and the police is the police? Because there's a lot of domestic violence where the police are the ones that's doing the domestic violence to their partners, but the police is covered by their brothers and sisters. And so a lot of those cases don't get the attention that they should because they're protected.
Saying it just like you said, sis. Like law enforcement, and there's studies that show that men and women that are in law enforcement have an increased rate of domestic violence. They have to take mental exams and all these things to do their life, but just having the hard conversation. Like, stop acting like preachers and law enforcement and people like that aren't abusive. And at some point, the conversation will be so loud that it'll be hard to ignore. But you're right, until that's had, like, they're going to cover it. I mean, based on my limited understanding and experience, they'll be more apt to cover each other. But we just have to keep having the hard, loud conversation, sweetie, and getting people in office like John. I told him from the first day we met, dude, run for office. Getting people in office like John, myself, like that have the lived experiences, right, and don't care what people think, because we're fighting for what we believe is right, and putting them in the room and putting them behind the tables, that the laws and the policies and the common sense conversations are being held. Because you're right, it happens more times than it should.
I'm trying to stay out the political arena, Jamie. You know they can't take me. I'm too real for them. They be kicking me out of office the first day.
I wanted to actually, the reason I had brought up like the witness, or well, actually Lynette had brought it up, but the reason I had asked the question was because when I was a senior in high school, I was walking down the hall and this girl, I know she was a year or two younger than me. We wasn't friends though. She was in the bathroom. She was in the bathroom and her friends were outside the bathroom, but her boyfriend, so she was walking and her boyfriend was behind her, but he was like yelling at her or whatever. And she had walked into the bathroom. He had went into the girl's bathroom and dragged her out by her hair. And I was just sitting there. I was looking at her and then he was just cussing her out or whatever. And then I looked at her friends and I was like, y'all not gonna help her? And they were just looking at me and I'm looking at them because it's three of y'all. It was three friends and then it was her and it was the boyfriend who was by himself. Like, I feel like that they should have helped in that instance because I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But I felt like that they should have helped. That's why I asked them that. But they didn't. I went on the class, minding my business. And then now she got a baby by him. And it's just, it's bad, you know? But yeah, that's why I have brought that up.
I agree with what you're saying, Deja. That's true. But I want to address that comment that was just on the screen. Just to clarify what I'm trying to say is they're not people, for those who are in prison, it's not always the trauma that led them to prison because, sometimes you go to prison for things like marijuana and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is, like, for those who are in prison and they have to have a short temper to be around others. It's kind of like it just, once they're out of prison, they still carry that same mindset. So that's what I mean by institutionalized. Like, they just a quick reaction to violence because of their environment that they were in for such a long time. So that can transform into the relationships that they then have after prison.
I'm going to reword that. So it's the trauma that they experienced in prison, because in that environment, you do have to, act with the quickness. And when you get out, or at least from my experience, you react before you ask questions from what I, endured.
Do you feel like, in the Black community, because we was raised being yelled at a lot, and like there's certain kind of yells that your parents are that they like, they yell your name a certain way, you better do it now, or like, y'all know what I'm saying? Like, that's just the culture of being African American. Like, they yell, we yell, and so, like, do you think that, like, when in the dating world, is that why a lot of people can't really recognize that that it's off top, that person is gonna give them domestic violence? Or what am I saying? Am I trying to say it right? Do you kind of understand what I'm saying? I think what I'm saying is, like, just we kind of touched on it, but just trying to, like, pinpoint it, like, is this the history of, like, what this is going to be like with this partner? Because we are so used to being yelled at or talked to a certain way that it's kind of normal.
I think so. I think you're absolutely right, Tony. Like, the normalization of the yelling and the whooping and the slapping and the shaking and all of those things. But the beautiful part is, especially with the younger generation, you all are doing it a different way. Like, my oldest daughter, she gets married in December, right? And her and my soon to be son-in-law, they're very intentional about doing things a different way. I don't know if they're not going to not spank their children, but they're definitely not going to discipline them the way that his mother did him and I did them. So did her and her sister. So a lot of it is learned. But the beautiful thing is we can unlearn it and we can do it a different way now that we have the awareness to be like, wait, is that why I allow hitting and I hit in a relationship? Now that we have the awareness, like, oh, maybe that's not healthy. But we don't know what we don't know, but when we know, we can't unknow. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's why what we see in our homes and our community is a big part of who our community becomes, right? Because if we see violence in our house, we try to do it. If we see our moms and dads argue and fight, we think this is the way relationships go. So sometimes that poison, it gets into our community and we do have to unlearn it. And, especially just from the slave mentalities and things that we've been through, it's passed on behavior that we have to correct. You know, we all was young folks, and our parents said if somebody hit you back. It starts with those little things, right? But it escalates as we get older. The more violence that we see in our community, the movies, the music, it just enhances what we already experienced when we were young. And these young thoughts and these young processes come back to, our lives, and that's why these conversations is so real, because that trauma sits in us, that PTSD. If you've been in a household, I watched my mom be abused. So certain things that you see, it's a trigger for you. And you wonder why you're so adamant about certain things. And it's like, you see that, right? And it's just like the control stuff. And I think, Jamie, you hit it on it earlier about, the mental control, because I see so many young women. I work with these young ladies when they come into our jail. They get in control by men, manipulated mentally because they don't understand, right? And no one's really teaching them or telling them. And they're just going off, oh, he loves me. This is the attention that I need. And it's really something that's detrimental to them. But again, it's a lot of healing work that needs to happen in our community. And again, these conversations that we have with the elders of the community and the young people in the community, bridging that gap is very important. Our lived experiences, bringing it back to the young folks. And that's why I think today's conversation is so great for you, Jamie, being a leader, a pillar of the community, right? Talking about your experiences. You got the young women on here who are listening and able to take this information and evolve with it and move it forward, right? Because we always talk about these things. How do we push it forward? And it's these conversations, our young people, and then they'll make the better decisions, because at the end of the day, it's about waking up that mind, right? It's there subconsciously, but having this conversation, it just kind of brings back to the forefront, especially when we're in those fight or flight situations and we're trying to, help serve and protect the people that we love the most, our friends, community, and relatives. So it's a lot of work, but we got to keep doing it. We got to keep pushing it forward. And I think, like the young lady said, we have to keep talking about it so people don't feel ashamed. We have to not make it to the point where it's like we're not having these conversations. It's real, it happens, and we need to have open conversations and be able to have that so that we can start to make a change in our community.
Yeah, I actually have some statistics for you guys. Okay, about 252 criminal domestic violence cases that involved athletes. About 14%, which was 49, were football players, and then 7% were baseball players, which was 25 of them. 6% were basketball players, which was 21, and then the same for ice hockey players. Why do you guys think that football players are the majority of professional athletes that either commit or are victims of domestic violence, but mostly commit?
I would say football players more because it's a violent sports. They're used to making contact with people. They get upset, they go and tackle somebody, right? And sometimes your life, you get conditioned to what you do. So if you don't have that level of understanding or that therapy or that support, the first thing you do is you do what you do naturally. Somebody piss you off on the field, I'm gonna go tackle them, right? That's just kind of why. And not saying that the other sports are not violent, but football is one of those violent sports. I'm surprised they didn't have boxers on there. I wanted to see what those numbers are for boxers.
I agree. I think it relates just back to the being institutionalized. Like you're just always in that environment, you just kind of create those patterns, and that leads to why. So, but I wanted to say also, I was watching a podcast about well, it wasn't about football players, but they were ex-football players who were in the NFL, and they were talking about how football players can use things like therapy and things of mental health while in the league and after the league, because it's kind of impactful and it helps them shape life after being in the league. So I thought that was cool.
I know we didn't really talk about it, but we've been talking about like domestic violence within relationships, like girlfriend and boyfriend relationships. But I also wanted to mention that domestic violence can also occur in like friendships and like family relationships, other types of relationships, just like Draymond and Jordan.
You're absolutely right, Deja Sweetie. And so, like, at least here in the Houston, Texas area, that's some of the times you'll hear family violence be said as opposed to domestic violence, because family violence covers exactly what you just said. Partners, mothers and daughters, like Yeah. And the root of violence, you all, what I'm discovering, it all leads back to power and control. One person is exerting power and control over the other one. And so we can get to the core of why the person that's like wanting the power control, we can get to the core of that and allow them the space to help them understand the why and heal from it. I honestly, with my entire heart, will see that violence in our community is going to decrease. Because then I understand, Deja, why I want to pull you by the hair and smack your face is, that's what I did. That's what was done to me. But when we interrupt that, I'm less likely to pull your hair, Deja, and slap your face,
Yes. Okay, so would the response to, those type of relationship like mother and daughter, would the response to that be the same as the intimate partner relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just speaking from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sharing this with my friend. I was a narcissistic parent, meaning that, and it took my oldest daughter telling me to my face one day about 10 years ago, "Hey, Mama, it's not my fault that you were 13 years old and pregnant. It's not my fault that you sacrificed the way that you did." And then it took I have, out of my 5 pregnancies, I have 2 living children, one that's 22 and one that's 28, 2 daughters. It took my 22-year-old saying, "Mom, you jacked up as a parent, you and my daddy." And so it took me learning and listening to the hard conversations from my 2 daughters to say I was a narcissistic parent. I was emotionally and physically abusive. And especially now that I understand what emotional and physical abuse looks like, the only difference, Deja, is that, I was exerting my power and control over my children instead of over a partner. And now that I have that awareness, I allow them the autonomy to do what it is that they want to do with their lives. And I just support them. But absolutely, y'all, and I was in not making an excuse, but explaining the why. I did to my daughters what was done to me. But it was a little worse too. I mean, especially with my oldest, I'm like, "You're going to do this and you're going to do that. And you stretched my body out and blah, blah, blah." Well, that ain't her fault. That was not her fault. And so we had some very, very hard conversations, me and my 2 daughters, that's allowed me to see the error of my ways and to encourage them to do it different with my grandchildren.
That's good. Step 1 is to acknowledge the problem. But I actually wanted to ask you earlier, but since you said it yourself, what is your opinion on whoopings now?
I think anything that's out of balance is not a good thing. I don't care if it's whoopings, drinking, sexing, whatever. Everything needs a balance, right? And so I don't know, Deja, with my heart that I could ever say don't spank a child. But I don't think that should be the only option, Like as just a human, I can't say, "Oh, don't whoop my grandchild." No, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But that shouldn't be the only option. And it should be balanced.
But Jamie, I think some of these kids need a spanking, Jamie, okay? And I'm not saying abuse the kids, but I'm just telling you, I think it helped me so much. I go back today and I think about some of these kids and what's going on. I'm like, I had that fear and understanding that if I did certain things, I was getting in trouble, okay? And that fear is what kept me from getting into more trouble. These kids today are so fearless. And I think it's not just the kids. I also think we have a problem with our adulting and our parenting. There's too many parents out here that want to be friends with their kids. You know what I mean? Everybody want to be buddy. And I think that's where the disconnect came, because I couldn't be friends with my parents, right? I couldn't sit down and listen to their conversations. I couldn't go down and party with them. And I think we've included our kids today into too much. And I think the level of respect now for the young people to their parents is like, this is my friend. I could talk to them any kind of way. I could do this because you're my friend. So I don't know. I'm not saying abuse. I'm never there for anybody to be abused. But I think correcting young folks in that manner, administered right is definitely something that we're lacking in our community.
And that's not my lane, so I won't opine holistically. But I will say that I agree with you 110%. I've never been my daughter's friends. I'm still learning how to be a friend mom like that. Like, I'm not your friend. And yes, the spankings, but just don't be beating on folks. It just has to be a balance. So yeah, I can never not say don't spank.
Yeah, I know my social worker friends out there be like, John, that's horrible. Every time you spank a kid and give them 6 years of trauma, don't be saying that stuff. But I'm just being real that, I know for me, it definitely helped me. And I think back some of those turning points, some of the decisions when I was out with my friends in the community who was making terrible decisions, that thought of that responsibility that I would have to take kept me from doing certain things. And I think that's, it's just a little part of what we're missing. But I know my friends out there, I apologize, my friends. I know y'all gonna call me, but like, don't be saying that. So they gonna spank me tonight. But it's okay. I just think it's something that we need to, still, it's like you said, it's a way we could do it, administer that discipline that's not abusive. Now, I'm not saying pull out a extension cord and pull a tree branch, but what I'm saying is correcting those behavior and letting our young folks know that it's not right. But with that being said, we got 10 minutes left before we close out today's show. Every show, y'all know we always try to make sure that we leave the community with something. Well, maybe you tuned in late. Maybe you missed the whole show. You got an opportunity to go back on our YouTube and watch the replay and see what was going on. I think today's conversation have been very, very powerful. Our young folks have showed up again and really bought the education, the awareness. They did a phenomenal job asking Jamie questions. And Jamie, thank you for being available to our young folks. This is what leadership is all about, you guys. When we talk about leadership, it's demonstrating what's possible. Y'all see what Jamie is doing. She is demonstrating to our community the resilience, the perseverance, what it takes, that courage to be vulnerable, to come out and do everything she can to make our community better with these type of conversations. And again, to our youth for just showing up, listening and sharing and being a part is, I think, is very, very powerful. As any therapist would say, the first pathway to healing is through communication. Get it off your chest. You got to talk about it. The fastest way to deal with your trauma, your PTSD, is you got to talk about it. You're going to cry. It's going to upset you. It's going to trigger you. But we have to do that in order to heal. And I think having these conversations is a pathway for our community to begin healing and having these conversations. Because I know there's somebody that's going to reach out to me. That's going to say, man, I've been going through this. I'm trying to get out of it. I know somebody. Thank you all for giving me the tips. Thank you all for giving me the information that I need. I want to help. I want to step up and do something. We know this is happening in our community. I think Deja said in the stats, or Devin earlier, 20,000 calls to the police, 911 for domestic violence every day. So don't tell me it's not happening in our community, right? It is happening. It is a problem. And this is why we're here today, to talk about it, figure out how we could be the support system, how we could be the connectivity to a peaceful and livable community and homes. And it just starts with conversations like this. So youth, phenomenal job today, putting together y'all guests, putting together the conversation to the community out there. Listen to our youth. Let them ask the question. Be a part of it. When y'all talking about where's the youth at, what they talking about? The youth are here today asking their questions, getting involved, because this is what it's all about, right? And having Jamie here, when we talk about bridging the gap, bringing our young and elders together in space to have conversation. Elders of the community, let the young people speak. You see, Jamie so patiently answered all of our young folks' questions. He didn't come in here telling the young folk what y'all need to know, what y'all need to do, right? It's a dialogue, right? It's about our elders being open to the young folks, our young folks being open to listen to our elders, and together we can make change in our community. But again, before we end, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to give some parting words or some words of encouragement. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, folks. It is real. It's not like this for this month for nothing. There's football games going on. There's somebody team who lost today. The dad might be upset. These are the conversations that we have to have, okay? During the football season, domestic violence is spiked, right? Teams are losing, people are betting, losing money, things like that. So again, these conversations are very, very important. And again, to the men out there, it's our time to do our part as well as men, to get the help, go seek the treatment, find other ways to deal with our emotions and our anger. And again, great show, you all. But go ahead. I'm going to start off with you, Jamie, and we're going to move right all the way up to the top and get everybody some parting words for today. And I'm excited to have more of these powerful conversations with our youth. But Miss Jamie, go ahead and talk to the people.
Thank you again for having me, y'all. Just like one of the virtual guests said, this provides me hope. Thank y'all, young folks, for doing what you do. I cannot wait to see the amazing changes that y'all continue to have. Thank you for having me, John, Tony, Sakati. Hey, good to see you, beautiful. Listen, if anybody's out there experiencing domestic violence, whether you're the person causing the violence or the one that's being abused, know that there's help available. Always go to my website. I post, the resources randomly. You can DM me if you need help. I'm here. You are not alone. We in our Black and brown communities, we've got to heal. Thank you, John, again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you powerful, Jamie. Okay. Don't ever think that you powerful. You are up there in my book of just people that just so impactful. And I'm just grateful to be able to watch your journey every day and the work that you're doing just to impact the women legislatively and all the things that you're doing with the folks in the pulpit. It's just very powerful and inspirational. So thank you again for being a leader of power, a leader of resilience, and just being vulnerable to the people and making sure that our people hear the real stories. So thank you again, and just a pleasure to be in space with you again as well. We're going to move it over to Miss Fee, young sister.
I want to say thank you for everybody allowing me to join and share my story. But for those who are watching, I don't want anyone to feel ashamed of their situation. If they do need help, like Jamie said, reach out to her. She has resources for you, and just keep trying. You deserve a lot better, and it will get better. You just got to do the work, and there's people there that can help you.
Yes, it is, definitely. And thank you for being vulnerable and coming up to speak, because, again, we need to hear from the young people. And it's somebody out there that each one of you are going to have an impact on their life. That's just the way it goes. You never know who it is, who's going to turn on that YouTube, who's going to click on that link, who's going to go tonight that watch and talk to their young parents, to the parents out there that have young teenagers that's dating in college and high school. Go talk to your youth. Make sure that they're not a victim of domestic violence. Make sure you listen in the conversations and make sure that they're not being abused. We have to do our part too to be better investigators when our young folks are out here dating and out here with these relationships. Don't just say, oh, my baby's going to the movies with her boyfriend. Make sure that when she's going to the movies, everything is okay and she's in safe hands, and ask those questions about how he's treating her or how she's treating him, things of that nature, because that's very important too. I think sometimes as parents, we don't ask the right questions. We're more worried about the wrong things when our young folks is dating, but we need to be asking those real questions as well. Brother Devin, always a pleasure to have you here, brother. Talk to the people.
First of all, I just want to thank the guests for coming on the show. It's Jamie Wright, Raven, and Fee. Thank you to our virtual guests for always coming through with the comments. My parting words would be communication is key. Violence, like physical violence, should be the last resort. I feel like we could talk it out, both sides of the conversation. It's gonna be a success within that. And I just want to say you can also lean on the people you have near you for those, and that goes for both the abuser and the abused. And thank you all again.
And thank you, brother, for all you do. Young, powerful young man, just looking for continued greatness out of you, young brother. Keep grinding and shining and just being the amazing young brother you are. And community, when we have young men like Devin and Savion and the other young brothers who are correcting and learning and listening, they are the next generation that bring healing to our community. These conversations also impact them and help build them up so that when they get into relationships, they know how to be a responsible dating partner. So I'm just glad that you're here, Devin. And I want to thank you as one of our youth leaders and the work that you continue to do to not only impact yourself and your family, but what you do for both sides of the conversation, our community, and for the youth team, man. We appreciate you and thank you as well. With that being said, Miss Deja, our moderator today, she's stepping up to be the host. She's going to be taking over. She's going to be doing a lot of things, man. Deja.
Okay.
Deja.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to our guests for coming on as well. And Contessa Tate in the comments, I see you was over there dropping gems. Y'all, she says she's a marriage family therapist. Check her out. And then also for our youth who are starting to date, don't let these men, or don't be putting your hands on your boyfriend, and don't let your boyfriend put his hands on you, because you deserve better, and so does he. And then to those going through domestic violence already, seek help, talk to somebody. And then, so communication is key. Let it out. The therapist is healthy for you. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. Big CAU.
Thank you, Daisy. You dope, powerful, and I'm just happy for you as well for all the things that you do, and you're a light to so many young people. So just keep being the light, keep being that resilient young queen that you are, and great things is coming your way as well, because you're just a blessing to our people, a blessing to the community, and we just love the work that you do. So I appreciate you as well, Sister Raven. It's on you. Give some last parting words to the community.
I just want to say thank you for having me. And I just want to say it's really important to realize what wrong is wrong, no matter the circumstances. And don't be ashamed to speak up. There is so much help out there, and there's always a good ending.
Definitely great stuff. So, Kadi, I know you came in late. You want to give any parting words to the community?
Oh, brother, I was not late. I want y'all to know I was sitting in the airport minding my own self business, watching your show. And I was sitting next to a judge. And he said to tell you all to keep doing what you are doing, because you are reaching people that other people cannot reach. And he was impressed by the wisdom of our youth and what you all carry within you. So I just implore you to keep doing what you're doing, to keep getting better and better and better. And when you see something that's not right, it is your business, because the Lord allowed you to see it. So we got to make sure that we hold everybody accountable in every situation that we are in. And if you don't get physically involved, get that phone open and get your fingers involved and make sure to get people help. But y'all, let me not cuss. I'm on a cussing strike. Y'all are all that and then some. Great job, Deja. This is the new, what you call her? I don't want to call her Barbara Walters, because that would be ugly. You the new Oprah, baby. That's who you are.
Appreciate
you all did a great job. Blessings to everybody. Nice to see you too, Sister Jamie.
Deja is our new Harriet Tubman of both sides of the conversation.
Okay.
She's going to free the people. She's going to free the people, okay? She's going to free the people. But with that being said, I think Tony got kicked off, or maybe her Cowboys lost. I don't know which one it is. But, she didn't give her favorite words, but I will leave with her. Always her favorite words. Keep ascending community, because that's what it's all about. There's a lot of work that we continue to have to do as we close out today's show. We talk about domestic violence. We talk about violence in our community as a whole, whether it's physical, whether it's verbal, whether it's sexual, whether it's monetarily. We have to do something. We have to find other means. The power and control dynamics that is going on, we have to fix it. The identity crisis that we are suffering in our community. How do we fix it? How do we go? It starts with help. Y'all heard Jamie multiple times say you have to seek the help. We need professional mental health providers, mental health and psychological health folks to come to our community. Bless the community. Come be that ear. Give them the tools to work through these situations. As you all know, this is rampant in our community. We can no longer let the anger, fear, and pain, suffering and silence continue to divide our community, continue to hurt our families. We know hurt people hurt people. So we have to do our part to make sure that the resources are there so that they can get help, so that they can exercise their voice. It's a voice out there that needs to be heard. Someone is crying in silence right now as the door is being pounded on, as someone's trying to get in there. The trauma is real. The kids is watching. We have to do a better job as adults. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to be mindful of our behavior as the young folks are watching us. We cannot lead in the way that we are leading and think that our young folks are not watching and paying attention. If we want to change this generational curse that's impacted our community, we as the elders of the community must lead in a way that our young folks can watch and follow. That is what we have to do. This domestic violence, we will continue to fight even after the month of October to make sure that our families are safe. Do your part. Recognize, when we talk about awareness, that's what it really means. Be aware, be an eye, be listening. Don't just be stuck to your phone. Don't be just stuck to the TV. Listen, if you live in an apartment complex and you hear constant commotion, be of concern, be mindful, Watch out. And when you see these type of events take place on the street, men of the community, step up, say something. As Sakati said, pick up the phone and dial 911 to help those. Enough victimizing has went on in our community for too long. We want our elders, we want our women, the men of the community to feel safe. If that is you in a relationship, do your part. It is never okay to put your hands on anyone. When you're upset, when you're emotionally high, take a deep breath, step away. Be mindful that the harm that you could cause in this domestic violence can not only harm the person that you are involved with, but the impact that you can have on total families. The loss of life is way too many killings and domestic violence. That pain runs deep. It hurts families. It hurts generation. We could do it. It just takes a little bit of work, and we'll continue to grind it out. We're going to do our part here at Both Sides of the Conversation to continue to have these powerful, dynamic conversations. We're going to keep doing it because we know through this communication, healing begins. Somebody out there is going to watch. That's why the young folks is so important. Get the young people involved. Listen to them. They're going through their own experiences. We can't just tell them they don't have enough experience. They don't know no better. How do we approach them? How do we bridge that gap? How do we work together in solidarity? We are looking for change. We're looking for change. And in that, we can change the narrative. That's what we're trying to do. What are you trying to do? Take a step back and think about the impact you can have by doing one positive act, by making sure when you're mad, you step away, by not arguing and responding, just removing yourself. We don't have to invigorate these situations. We could just take a deep breath and move away. So much more peace could come, so much love and happening. We have to lead in love, community. Lead in love. And some of this hate and violent ways will go away. We got a lot of work. We see what's going on across the world. It's a lot of violence going on. There's a tension arising all across the world right now. People in China, people in Iran, people in Iran, people all over this country. The tensions are high. We need love because these situations bring impact to our community. Again, to the workers, to the corporations. Do your part. Provide that mental health service in your space because we know in the workplaces, especially for our Black and brown community, could be a traumatic experience, microaggression, bullying, things of that nature. Provide the services. Maybe that service might open up another service of conversations that might take place that you impact your employee in the community. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Our next live show is this Tuesday. Every Tuesday, y'all know we live for our Hidden Gem segment where we will continue to highlight our Black and brown businesses and those community leaders and folk that are doing positive things to impact our community. We have to highlight them. You got to know what a Black business is. We got to spend our Black dollars with our Black folks so we can bring economic power that the Human Rights Commission was talking about this past week. All of the phenomenal people that was a part of that conference talking about how Blacks need to work together, spend together, trust again. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of movement. It's happening, y'all, but we got to do our part. So let's continue to do that, and we're going to continue to do our part to support those hidden gems, those businesses who come on. Spend $1 with them. Purchase some of their stuff on the internet. Help support another Black business. We always spend our money with everybody else. Let's spend our money with us, and then next Thursday, we're going to have another Educational Thursday segment where y'all know every Thursday, we are trying to intentionally educate our community and bring the information and awareness to our community. So if that is you, you might have a PowerPoint presentation. John, this is cool. I want to show the community how they can make some extra money. Come on and teach our community. Or maybe you got an educational tip. Come on and teach our community. That's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to do that to make sure that our community gets that information. And I'm excited because this Tuesday coming up, we got some community spotlights. We got the public defender of San Francisco coming on. And we also have a councilman that is running for office in Oakland. So we are excited to come talk to for all my folks in Oakland. If you want to ask this brother something, you want to see what he's trying to do to impact District 6, y'all need to tap into Both Sides of the Conversation because we're going to have him on Tuesday at 7:30. And this is an opportunity for community to have direct contact with him and see what his plan is and how he's going to innovate and bring energy to Oakland's District 6. We know there's a lot of work that needs to go on in District 6. But again, community, tap in. Y'all been talking about domestic violence all day. Hey, we got the public defender of San Francisco coming on this Tuesday at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Let's talk to him. Let's find out what he's going to do when it comes to dealing with domestic violence and other violence in our community. We talk about people who incarcerated coming home, what kind of support they have, and amazing work that he's doing at the district public defender's office to help our community and the work that he's doing with Bmagic and Momagic. A lot of questions, a lot of answers are going to get answered this week. So again, tune in, stay connected. Subscribe to our newsletter. If you don't know what's going on, go to our website. Check out what we're doing. We on all social media handles, both sides of the conversation. Check out what we are doing because we are doing some impactful work. And y'all know with this impactful work, I only get 2 hours of sleep. So I need some help. I need some love for all y'all texting me.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
Y'all let it
Thank
take
you for
over.
watching, guys.
Let them take over. All right, y'all. With that being said, have a great evening to our youth. Congratulations. Another great show. Jamie, thank you again. And a phenomenal conversation today. If you found this conversation impactful, check out some of our previous conversations and check out what we have coming up in the upcoming future. With that being said, I bid everyone a good evening. Be safe out there. And remember, be alert, be aware, because domestic violence is happening in our community. We love you all, and we'll see you all soon. Have a blessed evening, everyone.